The question is almost never asked outright. In everyday conversations, at social gatherings, or among colleagues at work, no one casually turns to the single woman and asks how she deals with the absence of physical intimacy in her life. Social etiquette quietly seals that subject away. Instead, people comfortably talk about her profession, her vacations, her hobbies, and the progress she's making in her personal development. Meanwhile, the biological dimension that underlies human experience stays politely ignored, as if mentioning it would somehow be inappropriate rather than simply truthful. Yet the reality remains, whether society acknowledges it or not. Human beings are inherently sexual. That drive does not fade away simply because life circumstances make fulfilling it more complicated. A woman without a partner does not suddenly stop being a sexual being. She becomes a sexual individual, learning to live with the absence of the most common outlet for that part of herself. What that process looks like is rarely explored openly. The common assumption is that she simply waits, calmly and patiently, satisfied to remain alone until the right partner eventually appears. Waiting is often portrayed as harmless, almost like pressing pause, a temporary stage that causes no particular tension or difficulty. But that assumption misses the truth. Waiting is not neutral. Absence has consequences. It can influence the mind, the emotions, and sometimes even the body. In response, women create their own ways of coping with that absence. Those approaches differ widely depending on personality, beliefs, and life context. Today, we're stepping into a subject that usually stays out of sight: how women actually deal with sexuality when there is no partner sharing that experience with them. Not the polished version, not the ideological narrative that pretends the issue doesn't exist, but the genuine range of ways women respond when natural human desire meets the reality of being alone. This matters for men because understanding it offers perspective on the women they may encounter in real life. A woman who has remained single for many years has been living through those years in some way. Time does not simply pause. Something has been happening during that period. Knowing the range of possibilities helps a man understand her. Ignoring that reality leaves gaps. The biological foundation also deserves clear acknowledgement. Sexual drive is not an optional feature. It is part of the human operating system. Evolution built it in because reproduction depended on it. Species that lacked the desire to mate simply disappeared. Species that felt a strong and persistent drive to reproduce continued across generations. Women inherited this drive just as men did. Yet cultural stories sometimes imply something different, suggesting that women can easily live without sexuality while men are driven by it. That narrative may serve certain social purposes, but it does not align with biological evidence. Women experience sexual desire as well. When that desire remains unfulfilled, it creates tension that asks for some form of response. The response is rarely only physical. Sexuality links closely with emotional health, personal identity, hormonal balance, and the general sense of well-being a woman carries. When sexual expression is absent, it does not produce one simple issue. Instead, it creates a cluster of effects that appear differently. Hormonal changes can be observed. Sexual intimacy releases oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins, chemicals that influence mood and stress. Without those releases, the body settles into a different baseline state. A woman experiencing regular intimacy functions with different neurochemistry. Recognizing this simply acknowledges that the situation is meaningful. She is managing a real biological circumstance that influences her life. Some women approach relationships through a transactional perspective. In that mindset, intimacy must be earned. A man must prove his worth through effort and traditional courtship. She believes she should not offer closeness until she receives first. The expectations often grow higher over time. Each requirement becomes a stepping stone to another one, and satisfaction remains out of reach. The man who might have become a genuine partner eventually withdraws. The situation begins to feel like extraction rather than cooperation. He feels as if he is constantly being evaluated instead of truly welcomed. As a result, she may remain single because the framework discourages men. Psychological trauma creates a different path. Past harm can install deep fear that interferes with forming new relationships. A woman who has experienced violation may carry that memory. Even if her mind understands, her body may still react as though danger is present. The nervous system that learned to associate closeness with harm rarely forgets. Distance becomes a shield against the hurt she anticipates. Unrealistic expectations create another route. She may be waiting for a partner who simply does not exist, imagining someone with everything at once. Men who match that entire list are extremely rare, and when they do exist, they often have many options available. These expectations are sometimes shaped during earlier years when attention came easily, at the peak of her attractiveness.